Well, I went ahead and bought the Harbor Freight Titanium Flux 125 welder, and I used it the other day, and it's actually pretty good. And being that this little welder can weld so good, I'm definitely going to keep it. And so therefore, I definitely need a welding cart. And so I had an idea. The idea was, instead of buying a cheap little welding cart that can only do one single thing, hold your welder and maybe your helmet, I thought, why not have a cart that can hold a lot of things, including the welder? And so that's why I opted for this 16 by 30 3-shelf steel service cart. I think this thing is going to be a great little welding cart that can also hold the rest of my welding supplies, like my jacket, my helmet, my boots, all of my other welding bits and pieces. And so let's build this thing and find out if I made a good choice. If you guys are interested to see just how well this little welder welds, stay tuned to the end of the video. Okay, first thing we're gonna do is obviously open this box up. Ooh, red. Here's an idea. There we go. Nice bag full of screws and nuts. Man, there's a lot there. Whoa, look at these casters. These actually look really nice. This is obviously the push handle. This is some nice looking stuff. I'm impressed. It's not the thickest material in the world, but it's probably thick enough for what it needs to do. I'm not sure if this is powder coated or painted, but it looks really nice. Okay, quickly looking at the beginning of the directions, it talks about the bottom tray, laying the bottom tray down with the 4 sets of 4 holes on the bottom. So there's 3 trays that look nearly identical to one another, and the way you're gonna tell them apart is the bottom tray has 4 holes, 4 sets obviously of 4 holes for the casters. And also on the bottom, you can see that it has some extra ribbing there, some support. So this is definitely the bottom tray. If you're building one of these, this is how you know which one's the bottom. The next step in the directions is to attach the 4 posts to each corners. Something like that. Okay, working from the bottom up here, you can see I have the bottom shelf on. I have the middle shelf partially attached. None of these bolts are totally tight. They're all just finger tight. And that's so I can get everything together, making sure it's all lined up properly. And then I'll go back through and do the final torque on all of the nuts and bolts. Okay, I have all 3 shelves now attached very loosely. None of the bolts are tight at this point. They're all just finger tight. But I do want to show you one thing. You can see on this side, I have 4 of these holes without bolts, and that's because this is where the handle is going to go. And here are the 3 parts that make up that handle. You can see the 2 side brackets that hold the actual handle. And here is how those brackets are going to attach. We're going to use the same hardware. We're going to take this bracket, put it here, and bolt it on. And once it's bolted on, it'll look like this. In order to get the handle completely together, you're going to have to slide one bracket onto the handle while you then slide the other side in. And with everything slid together, I can go ahead and bolt this side on. And with the handle now loosely attached, I'm gonna go back over every single one of these bolts and do a final tighten. And while I do that, I'm gonna be pushing on these panels to try to close up all the gaps in the corners. I'm gonna use my leg on the other end and my hand here and push these panels together, take my ratchet, and tighten it down. I now have the cart on its side, and I'm gonna attach the casters. They do give you 2 swivel casters and 2 that are stationary. I'm gonna go ahead and put these swivel casters on the side with the handle. And I'm gonna be using the remaining hardware here, which just calls for 1 bolt coming down through the top, and then from the bottom, 1 lock washer and 1 nut. All right, everything is now done. This thing is now ready to rock. Well, here it is all completed, and this cart is pretty darn cool looking. It's got a nice sturdy handle. It's got those swivel wheels on it. And of course, the 3 shelves to put lots of stuff on. And speaking of that stuff, let's go ahead and test the fit of the welder. The whole purpose of this was to have a welding cart that was, you know, more than a welding cart. All right, everything fits great. And look at that, everything fits exactly like I thought it would. And this still allows for plenty of access to the top of the welder if needed, and I still have tons of room for all of my other welding gear. And here is that 3-shelf service cart transformed into a 3-shelf welding cart. This is exactly what I wanted and exactly why I could not justify buying their dedicated $45 welding cart. This allows for not only the welder up top, but my set of tools. And if we move down here to the second shelf, you can see I have 2 helmets, and down here on the 3rd shelf I have 2 welding jackets, a welding hat, welding gloves, and my welding boots. So overall, this cart I think is a much better purchase than your typical $45 welder cart. Now I will say with that $45 welding cart, it does have a spot for your gas. This obviously doesn't because it's not meant for that. So if you're gonna be using this cart for anything other than flux, which doesn't need gas, you're gonna have to modify it somehow to hold a tank. But other than that, if you're welding with a flux-core welder or a stick welder, I mean, this cart is just perfect. So what do you guys think? Am I way out in left field here, or do you think this was a good use of this cart rather than buying the other one? When I was at Harbor Freight and I was about to buy that other cart, I just couldn't help but think that it wasn't really that useful of a cart. And then I stumbled across this cart, and it is more expensive, but I think you get what you pay for. There's a lot more functionality in this cart. It's still rather small, but I get to hold all of my welding gear on this one cart. So this is now my welding station that I can roll around to wherever I need it. Not sure I'm gonna be able to weld too well at this angle. We're preheated, I think ready to rock here. This is gonna be a weird angle. So after that weld, you can see that there is a lot of slag on top of the actual weld. So that's what this is that you're seeing. So let's take our chipping hammer and just chip it off. And there is that pass. You can see it doesn't look too bad. Looks like I had plenty of heat there, plenty of wire speed. So here at the welder, you can hear the fan. It's pretty loud. So let's open the top. We are welding with 030 wire and 1/8 inch steel. So the wire speed needs to be 10 and voltage E.5 is what this is saying. And that is exactly what I have the machine set at, E.5, and the wire speed is 10. And that's what you get. Pretty good settings recommendations out of the box. Not the most perfect weld here, but for just messing around, my first pass today, you know, it's only about 1.5 inches long there, but that was pretty good. I'll take my sunglasses off. Hopefully make me be able to see a little bit better. Kind of forgot to do that last time, but that's okay. They say with flux-core to always start with a new tip of wire. So you always want to cut off the last used little piece of wire. I'm going to line myself up. I'm not using an auto darkening helmet. That's kind of what I'm using here, the setup with my phone to get the footage of the actual weld. First, I'm going to set up my position, then I'm going to keep it, and then I'll flip my helmet down just like the good old days. I tend to hold my breath for each one of these passes. I know I'm outside and I know the wind's blowing, but I try to hold my breath just to not breathe any of that, the gases coming off of the flux. Okay, and here is that last pass, and you can see the slag. I'm gonna have to chip that off here, and we'll see what it looks like. All right, and here is that pass with the slag chipped off. And you can see it looks pretty good. I think I could have my settings a bit hotter, but overall, I think that's pretty darn good. And actually what I did was slowed the wire feed down from 10 to about 8.5. And looking at the back here, you can see that's the first pass we did and the second. So we have pretty good amount of heat for adequate penetration. And you can see the thickness of this metal. I've measured it just about 1/8 inch. So our settings should be pretty good with this. Well, hey guys, thanks for watching me build this cart and rant a little bit about the Harbor Freight welding cart. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit that thumbs up. And also, if you watched this far and you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing. I'm Jimmy for the General Expert channel here on YouTube, and I will see you in the next one. Woo! Welding cart of my dreams. Yes, yes.